you like to talk about when how to have a salary negotiations from your experience, and what advice would you give to both employees and HR professionals to ensure fairness?
I feel, that entire negotiation piece, should not get to an extent where it starts looking like you buying vegetables from both the sides. It shouldn't be, that vegetable buying experience neither for the HR person nor for the employee.
Why is this notice period so stringent and longer, like 90 days, especially in a country like India?
So honestly, no, it's like a marriage. Once you're married, you feel that you're a part of that family, and the moment you get divorced, you're like out of the family. You suddenly become like a vamp and a villain of that particular family.
Get ready for an episode that's going to change the way you think about HR and work culture. We have dived deep into a sea of HR topics, from hiring strategies to leadership, salary negotiations, 90-day notice periods, layoffs, career breaks, remote work, and fostering diversity and inclusivity. If it's about HR and work culture, we have got it covered with our incredible guest, Supriya Sawant. Supriya isn't your average HR pro. She is a powerhouse with a collection of not one, not two, but 13 prestigious awards and honors in HR, including titles like Iconic Woman HR Leader and Top Paradigm Shifter. She's been turning heads in the industry. After dedicating years to the corporate HR world, she realized that the conventional culture just wasn't her calling. This revelation sparked her entrepreneurial journey, and she is now the proud founder of HR Innovate, an organization on a mission to revolutionize HR practices across various industries. So, no more waiting, it's time to welcome Supriya Sawant.
Supriya, welcome to the podcast by Agile Coaching Roundtable. It's great honor to have you on our show. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know it's very late in the evening today for you, but then we really appreciate you joining us this late. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Ramya. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much, Ramya and Vivek, for having me here. And it's a total pleasure for me to this podcast.
All right. So today we would want to have a conversation around the work culture, and we definitely want to have your view as HR head, or maybe HR personnel, if I may say so. And we would want to understand what is the HR's point of view in creating this work culture, and this is part of our ongoing series on work culture and job culture. So to begin with, I have a very basic and curious question. So we would like to know from you where this term HR come from. Why the name HR, that is human resource? Why not people lead or human capital or any other name? Why? What are your thoughts on this?
So when you are actually looking at a business, there are different kinds of resources that you look at. Maybe finance is one of the resource, maybe the raw materials or the intellectual property which is required for having a business. But when you have to put together all of these other resources, the crucial and the most important resource that you require is the human. Because without human, all your other resources become absolutely zero. I mean, it does not have any value, and hence humans are called as the biggest resources. And the term HR comes from this entire the entire funda of having a human resource is to just ensure that we take care of the main part of the business, which is the humans, and have them perform to their best. So that's why this term human resource because at the end of the day we are all taking care of humans who are going to be accountable for running the business, running the show. So that's the reason why it is human resource and not people, because people are common. You'll find people on the road, you'll find people on the streets, you'll find people in the malls, everywhere. That's people, that's crowd. But the moment you talk about it as a human resource, it just adds a little more value to that. People who were actually walking on the street are now started to perform in your business and trying to think strategically to grow your business, and hence the term human resource.
So basically,
I hope I've answered your question.
Yes. So basically, we are trying to say that resources for human, right? So all the resources that you talked about, finance or whatever we have in the organization, all these resources for human, and that's the reason why we say it as human resource.
Absolutely. So who's taking care of that particular humans are called as the human resource department. The one who's taking care of the humans who are managing the entire show. That is why it's called as human resource and not people lead, because people lead is somebody who's like just leading the people but not managing the human resources who are actually bringing in that kind of value to your business. Yeah,
Absolutely. That's in a true sense, that makes sense. Also, since we are talking about people, we're talking about how it helps a business. The next thing that we want to check or maybe talk about is a people-centric approach is more than just a buzzword, right? I mean, how can HR leaders truly put employees at the heart of an organization's strategies?
so HR professionals are supposed to be people-centric. That's their job, to be people-centric, and that's their job to understand what the other person might feel. So when I am making policies for a company, I need to put myself in the shoes of an employee to understand that this particular policy, if I'm putting too much of stringentness to it, or maybe I'm too lenient in particular making a policy, I have to think it from a company's angle, that certain rules and regulations are not broken by the employees and people don't take everything for granted. But at the same time, I also have to think from a people-centric approach, understand the feelings, the emotions, the sentiments behind making a policy and making anything, right? So that people feel that they're genuinely cared about. Now, you spoke about the culture. Culture is all about how we treat people, how we build our values in the organization, and how we ensure that people are treated well in an organization. It's all about how we behave with our employees, right? So if we are not people centric, if we don't think from the angle of an employee, then obviously the employee does not see any kind of value in the organization, because it's, at the end of the day, they're humans, they're not machines, they are not
Absolutely.
AI. You design something and then it just gives you the results. They're not machines. They're, at the end of the day, they have emotions, they have sentiments, and that's what makes us different from machines. So we definitely need to have the people-centric approach. We definitely need to wear that hat of of an employee while we are designing any kind of HR strategy or any kind of HR policies, or any kind of HR moreover initiatives, right? We need to think about it not just from the business angle and what ROI it's going to give us in return, but at the same time, we'll have to see whether employees are feeling happy about it, whether employees are satisfied with that particular initiative. And at every stage, I feel it is important for an HR person to take feedback from employees, from their customers. So for an HR, their customers are their employees. So it's very important for us to understand, what kind of feedback, what kind of feelings they are having when we are rolling out everything. And the moment you involve your people, the moment you start taking feedback from them, they feel equally involved in the organization. They feel meaningfully engaged. They feel that, okay, there's somebody who's listening to us and doing things that we would want them to do. So
Wow.
it's as simple as that.
That's an amazing way that you have put across that as a HR, we need to involve people so that they feel that they are meaningful contribution, and also they feel empowered, right? So that they can do to the best of their abilities. And I don't think many people or many HR people would realize this fact because honestly, when we talk about HRs, right? So the first perspective people get is, oh, they are never approachable. Though they say that it's for
Absolutely.
humans, and people feel that they are not
Yeah.
approachable. Yeah, yes. And since you talked
First
about
of all,
policy, yes.
I've heard from a lot of people that HR so leaves at 5 o'clock. We don't even know who our HR person is.
Correct.
That's the words that I've heard, like HR stands for harassment.
Oh my God.
So people do say it jokingly, but there is a lot of depth in what they say, because this is what probably they would have experienced in some time in their life, and that's the reason why they are using such harsh words for an HR person.
Yes, and this perception, definitely I would agree that people had this perception. Way in like 2008 or 2009 or 2010, but nowadays things have changed. I can say for the fact that people are, HR people are approachable, and now at least we understand and we know that who people are, right? Who is the who are the people in the HR team. Earlier, that was not the case. We used to literally, we don't even used to understand when someone used to even pass from next door, or maybe we don't even know who that person is. So that was actually the scenario with the employees.
True, absolutely. These days, of course, the dynamics have changed. HRs have become more open, and more open with people. They're more people centric. They would want to, touch base with their employees, understand, because ESAT becomes a very, very important, key to. It's one of the KPIs, in fact, for the HR professionals to have a high ESAT, right? So it becomes essential for them also to understand, what kind of satisfaction levels are there amongst employees, So and moreover, it's a young crowd. Their thoughts are different. Their the way they perceive things is very different. So they just especially the millennials and the new generation, they always keep asking that why this, why would we have a particular thing, why this way. So that's very good, in fact, questioning the old and traditional way of doing things, and then that gives birth to innovation, that gives birth to new ways of doing things. So I feel the HR professionals should have a lot of curiosity amongst them. They should question the traditional ways of doing things and seek out ways in which they could do the same thing in a different way, with a different flavor altogether.
Yeah, just to add to that, maybe earlier what maybe now it's like there is a difference definitely, is that the functions or the impact or the operations that HRs usually have now has maybe increased, or has definitely added to what they used to do earlier. Maybe previously, or back 10-20 years back, they used to just hire people and then maybe maybe they used to look into the exit kind of a formalities and all those things. But now there are definitely different aspects or different dynamics which they definitely add value to, obviously, in ensuring that the overall culture within the organization that you mentioned, that becomes a critical aspect for them to look into, and that is where they also drive it from more from a people centric point of view. So
Absolutely.
these are few things that they definitely add in terms of
Very true.
what their
Very
contributions
true.
are.
Very true. Because in the past, again, right, people used to get scared of HR because HR used to come into the
Yes,
picture only when they had to get a pink slip or they've done something wrong,
absolutely.
So now HR is here to, give me my share of my punishment. So HR
Absolutely.
used to be that principle of school, jiske paas everybody used to get scared to go to.
Yes,
Yes.
So
yes, true.
now things have changed because people realize that HRs are the ones who are the culture ambassadors, because they are the ones who are
Wow.
setting the value, they are the ones who are setting the culture of the organization, they are the ones who are going to be telling me what I'm supposed to do in the organization, what goes well and what does not go well. So I have my kid in the frame. Yeah.
No issues. No issues. Yeah. So since we're talking about the traditional ways of doing HR things and now modern ways of HR thing, right? So one of the key aspects of HR functions is recruitment. So could you help us break down the recruitment process? For an example, if you want to say hire for a role of a Scrum Master, then what's the process would be? And the reason why I chose this role of a Scrum Master is that most of our listeners or our audiences relate to this example, is why I chose this role. So if you can just break down the recruitment process, how it goes for any hiring.
Sure. So when I am looking at hiring a Scrum Master, right, the first important thing is for me to design a proper job description. To understand what are the things that a person is supposed to do as a Scrum Master in my organization, pertaining to my particular organization, my particular culture. And basis on that, obviously I will have my team look out for candidates with those kind of traits, and look for people, firstly, of course, the technical skills and the managerial skills. I will look at that. I'll look at the number of years of experience that the person brings on the table. However, what is more important for an HR person is to also look at the cultural fit, the cultural fitment, of that particular Scrum Master, because Scrum Master is quite a senior role in an organization.
Correct.
It's not a junior role, right? So the person is going to exactly run the team. So that person has to be cordial. The person has to have that kind of a persona to run a team. People should be able to look up to that person. So these are few of the traits that I will look at in a Scrum Master while I'm interviewing. So technical, of course, the person needs to be extremely sound, when it comes to technical skills. However, I would also look at the other softer aspects, which the person should have. The person should have leadership qualities, and it has to be us rather than not me always,
Wow.
right? So it comes from the statements that the person talks. So it's more to do with evaluating a person through the conversation that we have as an HR HR round, that's what we call, and then see whether the person is actually fitting into the culture of the organization, whether my team members are going to be comfortable working with this particular person. At the same time, I also look at the fact that if I had to hire this person for my particular team, will I be okay, and I will be reporting into the person. So I need to wear an employee hat and then see whether I'll be comfortable working with this particular Scrum Master. So HR has to think from an angle, not just from a technical perspective and putting a check mark saying that okay, chalo, hired, one more offer rolled out, but from the angle that this person is somebody who will bring in that kind of value in my organization as a Scrum Master. The person will be able to lead the entire project, for me, particular function in my project. My entire developers and QA members should be comfortable reporting into that particular Scrum Master, and that person has somewhere has that traits of my company values.
Wow.
So all these aspects become very, very crucial when I am hiring the person, because at the end of the day, as an HR person, I have to hire the right talent for the right job. If I have a mismatch there, it's going to be a complete lose-lose situation, where I'm hiring somebody, that somebody is coming, leaving his or her job, and then getting into my company. But at the end of the day, I hired somebody who's not fitting into my culture, and I realized that 2-3 months down the line, and then I counsel that person out, and it's a bad taste, basically, that I'm leaving with the employee forever. It's a scar which the person will never forget.
Yes.
So we usually say that it's very easy for us to say that, okay, chalo, move on, let's move on, but it doesn't happen that way. That one bad experience of something to do with your career, it leaves a deep scar, and it's forever. You will never forget that experience. At the same time, if you have a great experience working in a company, that also will remain with you forever. You will never forget. You'll never forget that experience that you have with an organization. So it's very important for an HR person to understand, that all these aspects while recruiting. It may be Scrum Master, it may be a technical lead, it may be a software engineer, it may be anybody, right, who you are hiring. But it should just be fair, for the individual who's coming in the organization, as well as the organization should be able to benefit out of the entire hiring process, because there's a lot of investment of time and energy and money, and so much of investment that goes behind training, especially after the person joins. There's immense amount of time and energy and training which goes behind training the resource, getting him up to speed, and then realizing that, oh, he's a cultural misfit, he doesn't showcase this value, he's rude to my employees, he's creating ruckus in the team. So these are traits which an HR person should have, where the person realizes this at the time of the interview. And there are various questions, which you can ask and deep dive. What I often see is that HR people are in a deep hurry to close the position.
Yes.
There's some amount of pressure which is coming from the top, what happened with this position? Is this closed? What is happening? How many candidates have you interviewed? How many offers have you rolled out? So because of this pressure, people are not able to focus on the right things that we are supposed to do. Instead, just get things done, just roll out the offer and put a check mark and tell my manager that, okay, I have rolled out 5 offers this week.
Fulfilling the part of the KPI.
Yeah, so it's not to do with only the KPI, like closing number of positions, but it should also be closing the number of positions in a correct manner. At the end of the day, I feel the appraisal score which is given to that candidate should be linked to the KPIs of the HR person.
Oh my God.
Somewhere, it should happen, because at the end of the day, that will be a real KPI for an HR person. Not closing numbers. It's easy to hire people, yeah. It's just closing numbers. But at the end of the day, whether the person is able to perform, whether the person is a fit, is something. Performance, I would still give it a leeway, because it also depends on the competencies of a person. Yes. But, whether it's a right fitment for the organization, definitely should be linked to the HR person's KPIs, not just the number.
Yes. I mean, there were a lot of beautiful points that you mentioned, Supriya. I mean, again, I would also like to add as in terms of what you spoke about is the cultural fit, right? I mean, this is a more of a leadership or more at a lead level kind of a position, and how does this person, fit in and what is the impact this person would be creating, whether this person would be flexible or maybe will adjust to the culture of an organization, right? And whether it is going to add value to the team, or whether it is going to maybe put the team at stake over here. Is that is what we need to as an HR we need to determine. And that was a really wonderful point too. And since
Thanks.
we are at that point, that we would also like to check in, since we have definitely spoken about the recruitment process. I mean, how are the resumes? I mean, particularly for candidates, are shortlisted. Maybe, would you like to talk? Like, resumes are often the first impression, right? I mean, so job seekers struggle to showcase their true value or maybe potential through a traditional resume, or maybe through a resume. So, what does the HR definitely would like to look in a resume to be able to shortlist them first, and then how can candidate work to craft resumes that not only showcases skills but also tells a more of a compelling story about themselves? Would you like to talk that about?
Sure, Vivek. So these days, of course, HR uses AI and other tools, to shortlist resumes. So it's very easy for them to just get through those resumes which the AI gives them, and the bot tells them, okay, now these are the resumes. Now you all call the people. But if you ask me as an HR person, and now that I am running my own organization, and which is into hiring as well, what I particularly look at a person's resume is not the length of the resume, because there are a lot of people who believe in writing long resumes, and they feel that the moment I write long resumes, right, I will definitely be selected. It's not a question paper of that we used to write in those in our college and school days. It's not an essay writing competition at the end of the day, right? It's about how clearly you have mentioned the kind of skills that you are having. What are the kind of certifications that you have done, or from a technology perspective, which are the latest technologies that you have worked on in your past. So especially when an HR person is probably looking at putting keywords, especially on a job portal, these are the kind of keywords that they put, like if we are looking at C++, or maybe we're looking at Java or .NET, so or JavaScript. So these are like the keywords which the HR person may put, and your resume, the more clear it states these keywords, the more chances are that you may get shortlisted. At least the HR will review your resume and see what are the things that you work. Also, it is very important for the person to mention the kind of work that they have done. If they have probably done a project on a particular skill, it's important for them to highlight and not give a complete essay kind of a thing, but at least short bullets, maybe a single line bullets of what exactly they have done in that project, and what are the kind of technology that they have worked on, and what was the end result of that particular project, what were they trying to achieve through that project. But this has to be like really crisp. It cannot be like a long thing, because none of them have the time and energy to read through such a deep dive resume. So people like it short and sweet. The more shorter and shorter it is, the more sweeter it is, and the more chances that you will get shortlisted.
The beautiful yes, please go. Yeah.
No, please go ahead, Ramya.
Yeah. So the most important point that you have covered over here is how what was the impact of that, right? I mean, how did that person add value to that particular project? What was the outcome of it? So for an example, since we talked about KPI, right? So if we are saying that we worked on so and so KPI, then how did that KPI impact or help the project? So this is the thing I think most of the people miss on writing these, and they end up writing the paragraphs.
Exactly, people write huge paragraphs of what they have done, which what happened in that project. There were bugs which were there, and then I went ahead and I solved those bugs. And I mean, none of them are interested in understanding that what was the main objective of the project and what was your contribution in it, in a very short and sweet language and simple language, because everybody likes to use high-fundu English, but those are only when you have to write an essay. But when you're reading stuff, right, you would want such simple language which you don't have to go and press a shift F7 or a thesaurus. You don't have to refer to a thesaurus, basically. it's always advisable to use the most simple language so that the other person understands what I'm trying to communicate. Also, it is important for the person to highlight the kind of certifications that he or she has done, like what are the kind of latest technologies that the person has worked on. If there's something which is like a hot skill and you possess that hot skill, that should come at the top. Also, the one more thing which really matters is giving a headline to your resume.
Right.
Probably a seasoned professional of a seasoned Java professional with 10 plus years of experience, having this kind of knowledge, something like that should be there, so that it attracts the HR person, because these are the keywords that the HR person will put, and then it just pulls you in the entire lot. Even if it's AI, for that matter, you have to put, as an HR person, you are also putting keywords in that AI, right? That's how these apps, they pull your resume and then they shortlist. So there are good chances of you getting shortlisted if you put those kind of keywords in your resume. So you should focus on that and everything very clearly. Your qualification, you don't need to write so much about your hobbies and stuff, because let few things get discussed in an interview rather than writing everything like a autobiography and submitting it to somebody. Nobody is interested in knowing much about you. So resume should be very crisp, and it should always talk about your experience. It should talk about your qualification. It should talk about your certifications. And of course the name and address is obvious. It's going to be there, but apart from that, you don't need to write big quotes, and some people have a habit of writing quotes and whatnot in their resume. Nobody is here to hear gyan and read
Yes,
gyan. There's enough on
absolutely.
the web.
Yes, yes, yes. Also, just to put it across, and maybe trying to speak in a crisp way about your skills and then the accomplishments in terms of while performing your previous job or while doing your current job. What are the biggest achievements in terms of, maybe through any of those things, makes more sense when you want to put want to keep it short or put it in a crisp way.
Absolutely.
Having those makes more sense.
Exactly, your achievements, definitely you need to highlight those achievements. If you've won certain accolades over these years, you should have those accolades mentioned there, because these are the things that attract the HR person, not
Yes.
what your hobbies are. It really does not matter whether you
Absolutely
play cricket or you listen to music. That's something that the HR person any which ways would ask you on the induction day.
Absolutely true. So now, since we have spoken about the recruitment process, we have also spoken about to a good length on the resumes. The next important point, while an individual applies for an opportunity and an individual is given an opportunity, yes, you're the right fit. The next hurdle for that individual is to do the salary negotiation, or maybe to talk about it, right? Especially it's like, how do I proceed, or maybe have this kind of a discussion, because it's at times it becomes an intense one, and it's like, I believe that in a certain way it gives a motivation for an individual to have a right compensation package. So would you like to talk about how to have a salary negotiations from your experience, and what advice would you give to both employees and HR professionals to ensure fairness?
Sure. So, these days, no, Vivek, I have seen a trend that people ask about their salaries even before they, come in for an interview. That's a trend. How much are you going to give me? That's the first question they'll ask you. They'll not ask you about the job description, what you're going to do, and stuff like that. They are only interested in how much money are you going to give me? Tell me that. So then, of course, if I'm an HR person, I always tell them that, that depends on how you present yourself at the time of the interview. So then people are okay with it, So I feel, that entire negotiation piece, should not get to an extent where it starts looking like you buying vegetables from both the sides. It shouldn't be, that vegetable buying experience neither for the HR person nor for the employee. So when an HR person is hiring, he or she has a budget, and when you are doing your screening, you usually ask the person about the current compensation and the expected compensation. So if you meet up with the candidate who has high salary expectation or is already drawing X amount which is very close to your budget, and there's no room for much correction, because each person these days, they're at the least, they're expecting at least 40%. Those were the days when 20% say people used to be happy, but these days it's minimum, I'm saying, is around 40 to 50%. It's a trend. Of course, 100%, 150%, people have been getting those kind of insane hikes as well, but minimum 40%. So you should, as an HR person, understand that, if this person is going to ask me for a 40% raise on the current compensation, then, and if his compensation is already it's just 10% more, from 10% less than what my budget is, then I'm not going to, either if the candidate is extremely great, that, I can stretch my budget and I can actually, break the rules and go back to my management, take exceptional approval, and then, hire this person. Great. If you can do that, great enough. But I'm sure you're not going to do it for everybody, right? So at the end of the day, when you are screening candidates, you definitely need to look at the compensation also as one of the aspects when you are looking at hiring and when you're looking at screening. That budget aspect always has to be there with the HR person. Also, when I say, that I spoke about not having a vegetable bargaining kind of a negotiation, because that gets, I have seen HRs doing that, chalo is pe aa jao, na tumhara na mera, this particular number, and then the person is like, are sir, thoda sa bas itna bada do, bas main aata hu. That it shouldn't happen that way, because at the end of the day, the person also should come and not have a feeling that, oh, I adjusted and I compromised. And the HR also should not get a feeling of that, oh, I've compromised too much on this person, because then your expectations also from that employee is at a peak when the person joins, and then you forget that, okay, he's just joined and I need to give him some time, because you have burnt your budget to get the person on board.
Correct.
It has to be a healthy discussion. It has to be somewhere in the middle line. And when an HR person is hiring, right, that person should be able to judge that, okay, whether this person is somebody whom I can hire with respect to my budget, or is he or she way above my budget and I'm definitely not going to be able to hire him or her, however great the person may be. So this particular salary part, right, should be done at the start of the hiring. When we are evaluating a person, salary also should be a part of the screening process, so that later on it does not come to an extent where it's too much of a negotiation. You are clear about the person's expectation. You know that, okay, now this is what the person is currently drawing, and I'm going to be giving at least whatever 25-30% hike to this person, and he or she may be happy with that kind of hike, because maybe that person did not have an appraisal, maybe he did not do well in his previous organization, and maybe is looking out for desperately looking out for a job. So sometimes candidates do compromise on a not a great hike as well. In fact, I have known candidates who have compromised on a lower salaries as well, from what they were drawing, because they are in desperate need of job, so especially during COVID, I have seen that phase, where people were like, they were okay to take up any kind of job. Just give me a job. I need job.
Yeah.
So that phase also comes, at times, especially during recession and, the other hard times, that we have seen. But I feel, we should not, as HR professionals, we should not be in a situation where we are taking advantage of that situation and, hiring somebody at a lower package. Because every person wants to grow in life. No, nobody likes to take a U-turn and go back.
Correct.
Yeah. So even when you're thinking about it from a people perspective, you need to take care of that.
Yes. So since you talked about the COVID situation, right? So my next thing that I would want to check is remote work has become a norm, right? Now people are looking for remote opportunities, so much so that few months back there was a news that 1 lakh employees quit one of the biggest brands of an organization, just because employees were asked to work from office. So what are your thoughts on this? What can organization do here?
See, I feel there has to be some kind of flexibility, which definitely as organizations and HR leaders, we need to give our employees. But at the same time, I feel that, things are back to normal. I mean, you don't think twice before stepping out of your house and going out for a dinner, or a lunch. Then why think so much when you have to come to work? I feel people have become more lazy. People have become more, they feel that, it's inconvenient for me to travel. And sometimes, I feel that, people also feel, especially in cities like Bangalore, or even Mumbai these days, right, that travel time is more like a killer time. I'm not able to be productive during that time. There's nothing productive that I'm doing. So instead, I would be more productive at home. Now that's a debatable topic, because companies and managers might, debate with me, saying that no, we don't find them that productive, even at home, because you're catering to various things when you are at home. It's not just work from home, it's also work at home,
Right.
And we've all seen that phase of life when we had no maids and no house help, and we had to do everything at home and then manage work. So it was crazy time, that we have spent. And I feel that that time we have worked more than what we were supposed to work, because again, it's easy availability that we had on at home. So anytime, even at 11-12 o'clock, the manager would call and say that chalo kaam pe aa jao. So from both ends, we should realize that work from home is definitely not a option that we have for a long run, because from a productivity perspective also, companies are facing challenges, and employees also should understand that it's not a healthy way of dealing with the work-life balance. Because it's a myth that people feel that I'm working from home, so I am keeping my work-life balance nicely. It's not that, you're not actually taking care of your work-life balance. In fact, you're disrupting your work-life balance, because you are available 24/7. You have a laptop at home, you have a Wi-Fi at home, and you are, trust me, available at any point in time. Whereas you coming to office, you have a strict 8 to 9 hours that you are clocking in the office, and then after you go home, you just have to spend time with your family. So I think people should realize that, and it's okay to work from home maybe once or twice a week, but at the end of the day, it's important for you to show up in office, have that kind of camaraderie within your team, because online it does not happen. See, whatever bond we may have shared with our past colleagues, it's always because we have spent that kind of time together. We've shared a joke or cracked a joke which has happened in office. It's not online that we have shared certain things. It's always been because we have that physical presence with each other, and that's important. Because at the end of the day, we are humans. We need to meet people. If we are all the time on the screen, it's not going to help us anyways.
So maybe just to put it in, it's like more of a virtual connect, but not as a personal connect that we often have nowadays. And that is where again organizations do talk about a dip in collaboration. Maybe that is what they might have sensed it, or that is where they might have certain data points across it. I mean, when it was required, they definitely gave that opportunity to work remotely, to spend time with family, and I mean that was the need of the hour. And now they have realized that since now it's the situation has improved, we can come back we can have more people connect in that sense. Yes.
Yeah. But trust me, Vivek, there are cities like especially Bangalore, right? People are just not comfortable coming to work, and that's all due to respect to the traffic that Bangalore has to offer. But that's the fact. I mean, people feel that I might as well stay at home and work rather than traveling all the way for 3-4 hours and then getting exhausted and then coming to work. So people prefer it that way, but I feel the personal connect is required. Virtual connects won't help in building a team, building a kind of that camaraderie that is required when you're working on a project. You require that kind of bonding within the team, and that is something which you can't achieve it virtually. You have to meet in person.
Yes, and
online also is something which can't do that magic.
Absolutely true. And also you made a very wonderful point, is like it becomes very difficult to draw a line when we are working remotely in terms of how much time I would be spending in front of my laptop or on my phone, and how much time I would be giving back to my family or to myself, right? I mean, the important factor here becomes is the self-care that we talk about, right? And that is where I think that puts the self-care at a stake. Though we feel that we have that flexibility, or we have that freedom to decide for ourselves when do we want to work, or we can work at random time and given the situation, but then I think it's in a certain way it's impacting our self-care as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so since we are talking about flexibility, and we have definitely touched based on different aspects, there is another important aspect that we would like to bring up into this conversation, and that is related to the most challenging or the most difficult thing when we ask individuals is about the notice periods, maybe in terms of how much they serve when they resign. So why is this notice period so stringent and longer, like 90 days, especially in a country like India? And why is notice period non-negotiable even when employees assure and confirm that the handoff or maybe the knowledge transfer and all those things will be done in maybe in a month's time or so? What can all of us do to work out in a certain way that everyone is happy in this space?
So honestly, it's like a marriage. Once you're married, you feel that you're a part of that family, and the moment you get divorced, you're like out of the family. You suddenly become like a vamp and a villain of that particular family, right? So I feel it shouldn't be that way. It's an association with an employee, and once the person has been an employee of the organization, unless the person has been terminated due to certain situational reasons, the person should not feel that way, that he or she is being treated bad in a bad manner, because that's going to remain, like I said, it's going to remain for the rest of his or her life. That one small thing going wrong, right? It's going to always remain as a scar. So I feel that HR people should be very sensitive while dealing with exits, especially. And talking about notice period, right? 90 days is definitely something which is there on papers these days. But in case of employees, a healthy practice would be that if an employee has finished the handover, we already have a replacement who's come in the picture. And he or she has already joined, the KT is done, and the person is feeling comfortable. And as a manager, if I feel that the person who has resigned is not really bringing any value on the table at the moment, I as a manager, I can release the person. So an
Correct.
early release is possible. However, it has to come from the manager, because the manager should feel that, okay, now there's no work for this particular individual. And why would I want to call somebody to office without work? Because the others are going to work and this person is not going to do anything. You can't open even, YouTube or any other apps because of insects. So what is the person going to do? But he's just going to disturb my other team members who are going to be productively trying to focus on their work. Why would I want that? So in that case, I feel they should just let the person go and release the person, rather than making the person wait for 90 days. The reason why it is 90 days is because all companies have it as 90 days. So for that person to come back, the new person to join my organization is also 90 days. So that is the only reason. So somewhere I feel it should just stop that entire because now they have 90 days, even I will bring 90 days. Now imagine they bring 180 days, even I have to bring 180 days, because how will I leave my employees before 180 days, because my employee is gone and the other person is not joined, so my work gets affected. So the reason why this 90 days is because that transition period should be there. At least if the person has a 1 month notice or 2 months notice, at least in the third month the person will join and at least get a 15 days or 20 days coverage with the person leaving. So that is the only reason with which HRs have come up with this 90 days policy, that at least give that 90 days notice, and it's non-negotiable, because then the other person is also, the other HR is also not negotiating, But somewhere this should stop, and it should be completely related to the productivity and the kind of work and value the person is bringing on the table. If he or she is idle and not doing anything, it's better to let go such employee immediately rather than keeping him or her, because he is going to be spoiling the others also, and instigate the others that, oh, I've got this offer. Because people, how much ever you tell them do not discuss compensation, they do. That's a fact of life. Whether we like it or we don't like it, that's a fact of life. So he or she is going to discuss salaries amongst themselves. They're going to be discussing numbers. Why would you want such an unpleasant and negativity to spread around in your organization? Rather than that, let the person go in peace, happily. Let go of things and just release the person. If he or she does not have value and does not have work, because if the person has work, he or she is not going to get the time to go and talk to others. Because I have seen people slogging till the last day. So that means that we have enough of work. I'm not just KT, but actually delivering projects. So I have seen that kind of situations as well, where people are like hands-on, like they forget that, oh, it's my last day today. I'm not going to be seen from tomorrow in this office. So if that person is that busy, then 90 days is also shorter. That person does not have the time to think.
Yes.
But the moment the person has time to think, which means that the person is not as productive as you would want that person to be, and probably you are also good enough, with that person not being so productive.
Yeah.
So in that case, you should just let go the person rather than keeping the person tied and then creating unnecessary negativity around. So I really feel that somewhere this 90 days business should stop somewhere. Otherwise it's going to be, because if a person has decided to leave, he or she will leave for whatever reasons, and whatever you do, you're not going to be able to, retain that talent. So might as well just let go that person in a happy way, in a nicer way.
Yes. So, last few things or few topics that we would want
Sure.
touch base on. So, one is, since we're talking about work culture, right? So, the work culture can make or break employee engagement, and which you already spoke about. So, from your experience, how can HR shape a culture that encourages collaboration, innovation, and inclusivity?
Okay, so I said, that HR is the one who's always going to be like the culture ambassador. So it's upon the HR how they shape up their, how they define, first of all, their culture. So it's very important for HR professionals to define what the culture is. We always say that this is not our culture. This is not the way we behave in the organization. Define it. Define what do you mean by this is not the way we behave. What are the traits that you're looking at? What are the attributes that you actually look for when you are talking about the culture? So it's very, very important for HRs to define what the culture is, define what the values are, and then work upon the good things that you're supposed to do in the organization, which attributes and which coincide with the culture of the organization and the don'ts of the organization, right? So it's very important for them to clearly communicate this to everybody who joins the organization, because that's where you're setting expectations from the employees. Otherwise, it's always going to be that unclear thing that what comes under culture and what does not come under culture. And that's precisely, and the fact that whenever a person joins any organization, right, a new joiner always carries the baggage of the previous organization.
Correct.
So whenever a new person is joining, right, that person is not your employee on the day one. He or she is still mentally with the other organization.
Yeah.
Right? Some time for him to groom into your culture and get used to this kind of a culture. So it's very important for you as an HR professional to define what your culture is, so that he or she exactly knows that this is what I'm expected to do. Otherwise it's going to be very, very difficult. They're like children. Like if you have to deal with children, you tell the children that this is our culture, this is how we behave, this is what we eat, this is what we don't eat, right? That's what you teach your child. Likewise, you have to teach the employees that this is what our culture is, this is what we do, this is what we don't, and these are the values by which we live by. So it's very, very important. So a clear communication is required when it comes to culture. Now, talking about innovation, right, it is about how what kind of freedom you give to your employees and how you empower them to think out of the box, and reward them for that. So
Wow.
it's important for an HR professional to think of ways in which you're going to recognize the talent, recognize the kind of out of the box thoughts which come to an employee, and how you're going to reward that person so that the others can take examples and then start thinking. That's where innovation starts building up in an organization, because if somebody's thinking out of the box and you don't really do anything out of it, then it's a waste. That kind of communication should be made allowed, where such announcements are made in the all hands meet or the town halls, or maybe in forums where all employees are involved, maybe through email communication or posters or what have you, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the person who's giving those thoughts should feel that yes, I'm being recognized by the organization for my contribution, as well as the others should get an example, by which they also start thinking out of the box, and they also would want to contribute to the success of the organization. So it's very important for HR to play a very vital role when it comes to communication, within the organization. So innovation will start, but it is also on the HR person how he or she communicates this entire bit to everybody. Yeah. So I think we spoke about innovation, and we spoke about the culture ambassador, and talking about inclusivity. I think this is the new trend that's come everywhere. That everybody is talking about diversity and inclusion. The D&I factor. I think it's always that successful organizations have always been inclusive in nature. It's not about the hierarchy, but it's also about the kind of open culture that you have, that anybody can talk to anybody within the organization without having the fear of crossing limits and crossing boundaries, and without the fear of being judged if I go and talk to anybody, right? So that open culture is very, very important in an organization. And of course, these days equal opportunities should be given to everybody, irrespective of what kind of gender or religion or caste or any kind of discrimination is something which just creates negativity around. So an inclusive culture is something which has always been successful, and we have so many examples of organizations, large organizations and mid-sized organizations who have done so well adopting the kind of inclusive culture. And these days, though, it's more to do with I also want to be in that race, and I also an inclusive organization. So let's focus on the number of women we hire and the number of LGBTQ plus groups that we hire. Hiring specially abled people, and it's so important, and it's so much more positive these days, because I myself have worked with a couple of specially abled people in my team in my past organizations, and it's wonderful to see the kind of value that they bring on the table, through whatever they have. They are gifted. Each person is gifted. Each human being is gifted in a different way. You just have to realize their potential and just tap onto it, and there you are, you get success. So sometimes we humans are just in a way we always focus on the smaller aspects, like whether the person is to see properly or hear properly or talk properly, communication, this, that. But there are so many aspects, and there are so many jobs which can be done, by a specially abled person as well, by somebody who cannot hear probably or has a speech impairment, but is great when it comes to maybe documentation or maybe something else. So we just have to look at the kind of potential and the attitude that the person brings on the table. If the attitude is correct, everything can be done. If the attitude is wrong, then whatever you do and whatever you try, it's never going to work, So that positivity has to be there. That positive attitude and can-do attitude has to be there. Otherwise, it's of no use. I mean, even if you are a normal person with all your body vitals doing fine, if your attitude is not correct, something that cannot be worked on.
Wow, so beautiful point, Supriya. So you talked about one important thing is that we look at the smaller things, and what I feel is that, see, if we are talking about any employee, right, in an organization, we hire for the talent they bring in, or we hire for the mind that they have got and the attitude that they have got. So why discriminate when it comes to any kind of disability, right? So they might be having that talent, or maybe that they might be having that right attitude. We don't have to do anything with their orientation, their gender, their disability, or anything as such, right? So why discriminate on such points, right?
Absolutely. Each person has their own value in life, and God has gifted them, each one of us, with something or the other. It's just that we realize what He has gifted us with.
That's true. And the last thing that I want to just check on is the
Sure.
layoffs, right? So I mean, we have seen the recession, we have seen people getting laid off, especially in the pandemic. So layoffs can be emotionally distressing, right? How can
Absolutely.
HR people proactively create a support system for affected employees during such challenging times? Also, informing a candidate about it is also a tough thing to do. So, how do HR even do that difficult job? How do you communicate it?
I feel it's the saddest part of being an HR professional, the layoff part, because I myself have done that I don't know how many times, but it's something which is very emotional for me, and I don't like doing that particular part of my role. But being an HR professional, have to do that, whether you like it or you don't like it. It's a part of the job that I have to do. But at the same time, as HR professionals, we need to understand that we cannot, while doing that particular thing, it's a very emotional moment for somebody when you tell him or her that you know what, you've been like, it's not working well, and we'll have to let you go. So that aspect, should be taken care so sensitively, ensuring that you're not hurting somebody, So there are ways of doing things, there are ways of saying it, that, probably, things have not worked in this organization, which does not mean that it will not never work. So, probably this particular organization has not worked well for you. You have immense potential. Maybe you should just tap on to some other opportunity where your skills and your abilities are used and utilized to the fullest, and you can get that kind of value there. Currently we don't see that in this organization, and it's not healthy for you as an individual. So it's whatever is happening, it's a tough phase, we understand, but at the same time, you need to realize that you're not being yourself here. You need to be free. You need to ensure that you are giving your best, and you should feel good about it. When you yourself are not feeling good about it, obviously the organization is not feeling good about it. So probably things have not worked well. So but we will try and ensure that we give you ample amount of time to look out for opportunities. So it cannot be a person, you let go that person without a notice. So that's inhuman. You obviously need to give notice, because if a person is resigning, you expect the person to give a notice period. Likewise, if you are asking somebody to go, you definitely need to give a notice period. And during the notice period, right, you give that kind of flexibility to the person to look out for opportunities, instead of reporting into work, reporting into the manager, and then trying and finding out jobs. It's very difficult. I mean, you're trying to tell that person that you have to work as well and look out for jobs as well. It's not possible. Give that kind of support to the person. Maybe you could refer that person to other organizations. You'll never know. Sometimes it does happen that he or she has not performed well in this organization for whatever. It may be all because of the manager that he or she would have worked with and has not clicked well. So because of which the performance also has deteriorated. But now that the person goes in a new environment, you may never know, he may become a star performer there. So try and refer that person to other HRs who you know in your circle. So that's the least that you can do. Whether the person gets a job, it depends on his or her competencies, and again, all the criteria that I mentioned during the recruitment phase, right? It all depends on that, but at least you can give an opportunity to the person and let that person explore things. Also, what you can do is, give that kind of comfort to the person while you're speaking to him or her, that, if you need that kind of help, or if you want to give a reference, you can feel free to give my reference, as an HR person, I can give your reference. So that gives a lot of comfort, saying that, okay, there's somebody with me. Share your number with that person and save that person's number back again, so that the person feels that, okay, I have somebody to bank on. And trust me, Ramya, when I have done this, right, there are employees who called me back and said that, you know what, I found a job. And this is
Wow.
exactly what I tell, that please call me back when you find a job. And, I'll help you with all the full and final settlement and, early release and all of that, while you get a job, so that there's a smooth transition in your career and there's no scar left, in your in your resume, in your career. At the end of the day, a person does not want that scar in their resume or their career, saying, oh, there's a gap, in
Yeah.
your resume. Why is there a gap? And that's a question that usually HRs ask, right?
Yes.
Why is there
Yes.
a gap in your resume? So that person should never feel that, I left this, I mean, I didn't want to leave and I was asked to leave in this organization and it has been a terrible experience for me. So that thing, that scar will always remain. So ensure that you give that kind of experience to that person. He or she may have not performed, for whatever reasons. There may be so many reasons why the person may have not performed. Does not make the person unworthy of anything in life. The person is still worthy. The person still has that potential, which he or she has to just explore it in other organizations.
Wow, so many beautiful things, Supriya. And really, I mean, all the points, especially the point that you mentioned about referring to someone else, right, to some other organization. That is, I think that was a mind blowing point. I don't think many HR would do that. And that is something I never heard of anyone doing that. So I think you are definitely an award winning HR for a reason, right? And we need more such HRs in our lives. Honestly, I mean, thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so much.
all your contribution that you have done to all the organization. And I was lucky to share an organization with you, and so is Vivek. And we really need people like you. And I'm sure this podcast would be a lesson to all the employees, all the candidates, and the HR people as well, or professionals as well, right? To learn and understand how do we create that work culture within the organization, and make it employee friendly, right? So thank you so much for joining us today, Supriya. Vivek,
Thank you
over to
so
you.
much, Ramya and Vivek. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure as well.
Th- Thank you, Supriya. Again, I mean, doing this, sharing your insights, sharing those wonderful points, right from the beginning of a journey where a candidate applies for an opportunity to the exit part. Again, I know maybe the last part talking about layoffs. I mean, that is a difficult part. I mean, not the individual or neither the person having that conversation would ever enjoy it. But again, you made a very important point. Is what I could get is having empathy towards that situation, like, or maybe that person, right? I mean, and that makes a difference. However, I mean, at that point of time, that person would never understand it or would not make a difference to that person. But again, when that person would reflect back and look at that conversation, that person will realize, how much this conversation made
True,
that person
true.
comfortable into that situation, right? So again, thank you for
True.
sharing all those wonderful points, Supriya.
Thank you so much, Vivek. It was my pleasure too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we
Thank
definitely want to have you back in our show, to our show, because I know that there are so many other topics we want to touch base with you, because you are a good storyteller yourself as well. So definitely our listeners would enjoy listening to you and watching you. So thank you so much, Supriya.
Absolutely. It will be a pleasure and I would love to come back on your show. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you so much for watching this episode patiently till the end. We hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll meet you again in the next episode. Till then, if you like a podcast show, then do like, share, subscribe, and let us know your feedback in the comment section. You can also listen to the episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible. Thank you.